And we're live.
Hi, everybody.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is our Fearless Flight Live Crew Edition. And for all of you who didn't know, I have my own crew assistant here, Kiki. She wanted to join us to make sure that in Captain Ron's absence, we're not getting up to some mischief. Tonight, it's joining us our lovely flight attendant, Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi, everybody.
And Captain Eric. How are you, Eric?
Good,
Uh,
good. I'm ready for winter, as he observed.
Yeah.
Winter in Phoenix.
well, if you're just joining us, this is our weekly live show here for you if you are afraid to fly, or if you know somebody who's afraid to fly, or if you're just curious about what's going on in the wonderful world of commercial aviation. And with that, I want to actually start tonight with an amazing success story from our Birds of a Feather Facebook group. So if you're not a member yet, you should definitely join, because one, it's free, and two, it's a great community of like-minded and like-hearted people. And tonight, I'm gonna actually do my best to share my screen. There we go. I wanna highlight. All right. Do you guys see Jory and her partner there?
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. So this is Jory. She is my marine biologist, and she had like oh, I hope not once in a lifetime, but definitely an amazing opportunity to present her research at the Society of Marine Mammal Research Conference. The only little snag in that is that Jory is American, and that conference was in Perth, Australia. So, Jory, being being who she is, and having thought about this for months and stressed over it, she did do what we recommend, and that is she started early. And so she was actually at our last month's monthly group coaching call. And I know some of you might have been on that call as well. And we really dove deep into how Jory can work with her anxiety. And there's so much that she shared on the Birds of a Feather Facebook group. I just wanted to highlight the fact that she was able to realize her dream, and especially professionally, and be able to present at that conference, which seemed almost impossible to her, a little over a month ago. I mean, she knew she wanted to go. She just didn't know how that could ever happen, being on a plane, or on multiple planes, that is. And especially, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, flying over water, leaving. And I imagine, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that Hawaii?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
the one way.
Yes. So that's
Well, Dan, say what? Tell them what that is.
It's the reef runway.
Yes.
They dredged Honolulu Bay and all the surrounds, and they created that, and it was built initially as an alternate landing site for the space shuttle. I lived in Hawaii for 12 and a half years, so I have a real fondness for that particular location.
wow.
It's very good to have that for reliever and traffic reliever in use. But if you land out there, it's a long taxi to get back to where it's connected to the rest of the airport.
In fact, I flew back and forth from Honolulu to the mainland, obviously, for 12 and a half years, many, many, many times. And the pilots very often would say, as we had landed there and then taxied, as Eric said, this long way, and they said, this is why the fare is so inexpensive. We fly you part of the way and drive the rest.
Well, that was Jory's first stop, actually. She started out at San Francisco and then landed in Honolulu. And next stop was Sydney. And then from Sydney, she took another plane going to Perth. So I think she said in one of her Facebook posts she was in the air for 21 hours, broken up by those stops in Honolulu and Sydney. And yeah, there's a whole lot of nothing over over the um do you guys know, is that FlightAware, or is that one of those, right? FlightAware.
I don't know which presentation that is, but yeah.
Yeah. And so congratulations to Jory. I'm so proud of you, and I know we all are. And I think, Eric, you were on that call, were you not? Or am I hallucinating here?
I don't think I was on the call when she was on, but I'm familiar with her story and what was going on, and I think she Ron got her into the library where we have a detailed discussion of overwater flying specifically, and certification and training and why that's different and far more restrictive than everything else. And so I think she was able to get into that and read all about transoceanic flying until she became queasy.
Queasy.
So hopefully that was helpful.
She's a research scientist, so she can read a lot probably before she gets queasy.
Right.
But that's actually a perfect little segue for us here, because I know, holiday travel is coming up, and while most might happen, over land, there are some folks that are gonna go to Europe. There are some folks that are gonna go to Hawaii, and so why is it that even though it looks like, there's no place to land for hours and hours, how can you say with certainty to anybody who's watching and is worried about flying for long periods of time over water that no matter what, they're gonna be able to land safely? So what would you say to them?
I'll give you the short version if you're doing that. As I said, we do have the long version stored where we talk about that in detail, but the airplanes that are certified to fly long range over water a long ways away from alternates with two engines meet specific maintenance and certification criteria, and the pilots undergo specific training, and the aircraft is fueled to a level such that when it reaches what we call the equal time point, halfway between the landmass it's leaving from and either the landing airport or the next landmass where there's a usable airport, the flight is planned to have an engine or a pressurization failure at that exact point and is fueled so that the aircraft can either continue and go forward on one engine or turn around and go back to the departure airport or departing landmass. And en route in some places over the water, there are military bases and other airports that are usable as an alternates. But between the West Coast of the United States and Hawaii, there are not. There's nothing out there. And so the airplanes are fueled to either return to the West Coast of the United States or continue to Hawaii. And they plan for that eventuality, and they plan for that to happen right at the equal time point. And I don't say midpoint because the equal time point factors in the headwinds or tailwinds. And generally going to Hawaii, the equal time point is closer to Hawaii, and then coming back, it's closer to the United States, or excuse me, closer to Hawaii than the United States. And going out, it's closer to the United States because of the big headwind tailwind difference. But it's planned that that will happen at that point, and the airplane will have to turn around and go forward. And every flight launches that way and is prepared that way. That's why you've never heard of an incident or disaster or an accident on one of these flights. It's set up in advance, and in a way you go, well, gee, there's nothing out there. How do you decide what to do? Well, you've already decided what to do when you take off. In a way, that diversion is not such a hard thing because you only have two options, forward or back, instead of thinking about a whole lot of other places to go. And as I said, or as you say, it's baked into the flight planning to start with by the time the airplane launches.
So
And
I don't actually know how many flights go there every day from even just from the US between, do you guys have any idea how many flights are going like to and from Hawaii? Like,
I
I
wish
have
it.
a
Oh,
clue,
go.
but it's not just from the West Coast too,
Yeah.
because
no, I know that, but just because I was gonna ask you, Diane, you said you flew many times back and forth. How
many
many times has something happened on your flights?
zero. And I was flying nonstop from Honolulu, usually to Chicago, because I was flying back to the East Coast to visit family. And again, it's not just flying from California to Hawaii. You can be flying nonstop from Chicago to Hawaii to Honolulu. And that's a long flight. And so it's the same scenario, obviously, and Eric can address that as far as fueling. It's not just fueling from the west coast of the mainland. Keep in mind that Honolulu, Hawaii is part of the United States. So it's between Hawaii and the mainland, but it's Chicago and Hawaii. It's a 10 or 11-hour flight, depending on the headwinds. And so there was never an incident ever in the 12 and a half years, and I flew back and forth a lot. So,
I mentioned the West Coast of the United States because those are where the departure alternates will be. But as Diane said, these launches are coming from all over the United States, and that's the capability of these airplanes now with range and fuel. They can launch from anywhere, but then the West Coast of the United States is going to be their nearest alternate should they have to turn around and come back. But you ask how many, I have no idea. And the Hawaiians would say, way too
way
many.
too many. I, I
Stop. That's
I just
fine.
have,
Shut
I
it
just
off.
I just have to throw this out here for a second. In all the time, in all of the 12 plus years I was there, as you might imagine, I was at the airport a lot, picking people up, friends who were coming to visit and so on. And one of the funniest sights I ever saw was a local. And after living there for so long, I felt like I was a kama'aina, which means you're not a local, you weren't born there, but you've lived there for so long, you're a child of the land. And this individual had a t-shirt on, and the front of it said, "Welcome to Hawaii," and on the back it said, "Now go home." And we didn't all feel that way, but kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I just thought that you guys would be especially qualified to talk about it because, like you said, Dan, you for years lived there, and Eric, you for how many years did you fly there and back?
8.
8.
8, yeah.
So that's a lot of flights as well. And I just, wanted to make sure that we took that time to talk a little bit about flying over water, but the same would apply flying over any kind of stretches of land where, maybe there is nothing really in between.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one picture that I want to show. It's the last one that Jory posted in the Birds of a Feather, and you know that you love your job when your phone case is marine animals.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful.
yeah, I thought that was a great shot. And,
That's
and sorry, go ahead, Dan.
no, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I just thought that was such a great shot. And it really leads me into if you are watching this, whether it's live or the replay on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're catching it, and you do have flights coming up this holiday season, I highly encourage you to join our monthly group coaching webinar. And the topic obviously for this one is holiday travel toolkit. How can you manage your anxiety and enjoy the journey? So we have a new way we're doing it. We still do the third Thursday, which is this upcoming Thursday at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. But we know that that's often a little late for the folks on the East Coast and people tuning in from other parts of the world. So Capt Ron is doing an encore presentation of the same subject matter on November 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. However, we just got hot off the press an announcement to share with you that on Thursday we'll have a special guest, and this special guest will also talk to us about threat and error management. Basically, everything that is vital to ensure that you have a safe flight and that the airplane and everything around it is safe. What can you tell us about TEM, or threat error management, to kind of tease a little bit, Eric, our special guest?
So this is a specific model that was developed. I don't know if it was developed for the airlines or who it was developed specifically for 15, 20 years ago, and the airlines adopted it as a technique to trap errors in the crew and operational environment, in terms of checking and the way the crew members coordinate with checklists, flows, procedures, everything they do. And this thing was built to trap errors before they become significant and costly, as in an incident or an accident. And it's kind of a really cool deal. And as I think Ron will probably mention, they're trying to get the medical community on board with this, because they are interested in some sort of a model like that to help them improve particularly surgical safety. But this is a model that was constructed to coordinate people in specific semi-hazardous, or not hazardous, but semi-intricate operations where the outcome, if it strays off course, can be kind of disastrous. So it's a pretty cool explanation of how pilots and dispatchers and the flight attendants coordinate together to keep everything rolling along smoothly.
Cool. Well, and that's a special bonus on Thursday. So for sure, I don't think that special guest will show up on Saturday, maybe, but I know for sure he'll be there. It's an international airline pilot. I believe his route is somewhere from the East Coast to Japan and back. Is that true?
He's a 777 captain, and he lives here in Phoenix. His base is Dallas, and he launches sometimes to Europe and sometimes to Japan and Korea and that kind of thing. So he flies extremely long legs over water.
Cool. So that's gonna happen this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific and 9:30 Eastern. And then again, if you can't make it live, we offer replay as well. And if you are a Fearless Flyer Club member or an active Cleared for Takeoff 201 student, then this webinar is actually included in your membership or in your course. But I will put the link to how to register in the chat right after as well. So wow, we covered a lot tonight. Is there any aviation news updates, or I think actually, do you want to go first? Then you had a topic that
Hers is a little more serious than mine, that's for
yeah,
sure.
That's a bit more
since we
serious.
were talking about threat and
Yeah,
error.
threats and errors. This last week, it was, I think, the November 15th. They both happened on the 15th. And Eric can address it. And poor Southwest Airlines, this happened to Southwest. They had an aircraft that was the recipient of some target practice, and Eric can talk to that. And the other event that occurred was an aircraft, a Southwest Airlines plane that was in Dallas that was still parked at the gate. And one of the passengers' cell phones caught on fire. And what we refer to, that's referred to as thermal runaway. And that is a very serious event. They were very lucky because this occurred at the gate. And so the passengers were able to evacuate. The passengers at the front of the aircraft evacuated on the jet bridge, which is the traditional way to deplane. And the passengers in the back of the aircraft evacuated down the emergency slides. But as scary, and I don't want everybody to worry about their cell phone, but this is something that can happen to lithium batteries. And that's why it is critical that, for example, if a passenger boards with a rollerboard and it won't fit in the bin, or there's not enough room, or those kinds of things, and it subsequently needs to be gate checked and go into cargo. Of course, the flight attendants and the agents will say, do you have any medicine, keys, so and so, such and such? And do we have any lithium batteries? Because unfortunately, lithium batteries, which power cell phones, laptop computers, all kinds of electronic equipment, are subject to what's called thermal runaway, which is where the battery temperature gets very hot. And there's several different reasons for that to happen. One of them is overcharging. I mean, there's a couple of different other items. But what happens is once that battery gets to a certain temperature, it can't stop. It just goes into runaway, and it gets hotter and hotter, and then it can spontaneously combust. It can catch on fire. And so, and that certainly is a huge concern for those of us, the pilots, and certainly the flight attendants on a plane. And so anyway, the incident happened at the gate. The crew members, the flight attendants, we are all very, very well trained for this particular event. And they extinguished it. There were a couple of minor injuries, and everybody was fine. And the threat was taken care of, and the individuals, all the passengers, were subsequently put on they were put up, I think, that night, and then they eventually got to their final destinations. But when you read those kinds of things, that's why it's extremely important that those lithium battery operated electronics don't go in cargo, because they're not the same kinds of measures in cargo that we have in the fuselage. In the passenger cabin, we have fire extinguishers, we have halon and water fire extinguishers, and depending on the aircraft, the names might be different. We have fire containment bags, and we are very, very well trained in how to address that problem. And so just another reason to rest assured, because of the training. And we talk about this constantly on the show, and the training and the yearly training that the pilots and the flight attendants receive. And the passengers, as I say, we're not just there to pour Coke. We're there to keep everyone safe. And we're very well trained to do that. So those flight attendants did exactly what they're trained to do. They took care of the problem, and everybody was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done.
Yes. And then I think, Eric, there was another little incident that
You guys know how hard it is for me to comment on anything with a straight face, and especially airliners getting shot. So there were two airplanes approaching Haiti last week, one JetBlue and one Spirit A320 that got hit by gunfire from gangs from the ground, and they diverted to somewhere in Florida. Nobody was injured, that sort of thing. But that's caused either a serious reduction or complete suspension of service to Haiti in the interim. Then there was one last week that was a little more bizarre in Dallas, had a Southwest airplane taxiing out at Love Airport, and they got hit with gunfire and returned to the gate, and the passengers reaccommodated and left. And the past the me making stupid jokes part, you might wonder about what happens if an airplane gets hit by gunfire, which wouldn't generally be in the normal queue of questions that we would be talking about. But there are certain places that you might shoot an airplane that wouldn't be so good. And there are other places where you'd never know it. And in fact, this was lucky that it was under the flight deck, so the pilots definitely would have heard it, that loud contact on the ground. And if they had taken off, the repercussions of that would have been nothing. The hole is so small and the pressurization systems are so powerful on those airplanes that the first they would have become aware of it would have been if they'd landed and maintenance was walking around and they'd come up there and go, "Oh, boys, why don't you send the flight attendants to the hotel and come down here? I want to show you something. We've been in any bad neighborhoods on the way here because this is a bullet hole and we'd like to know where you got it." I mean, it would literally be not detectable by looking at the pressurization of the airflow. Well, obviously, if you hit the radio stacks or hydraulic component or something like that, you'd have problems and leakage and you'd notice it. But it's just such an off the wall, bizarre deal. And it was night. So they're investigating this and looking for the perpetrator, who probably will not be able to convince the judge that it was deer season and he mistook it for a buck, and there's no shooting after sunset anyway. That's a rule even in Texas. However, he might easily be able to convince the judge that he's not sane having shot an airplane. I mean, I would think that would not be too tough a sell. And we're even talking about this, but if we get any updates on this, we'll sure do it. And I just wanted to let you know, yes, the airplane can fly with one or several bullet holes in it, should that be an issue.
Well, that was proven by the JetBlue and the Spirit.
Yeah, they got hit in the air. Yeah.
And but as far as I know, that the shooting with the Spirit airplane had nothing to do with declaring bankruptcy, right? So
Poor Spirit. I know.
Unlikely.
No. I think
I know, and a lot of comedians did a lot better than we did.
Oh.
But
With a straight, yeah. With a straight.
It all goes to, you cannot make this stuff up.
Yeah,
No.
you cannot make
I
it.
can't quote who it was, but it killed me. He put up a picture of the Spirit 320 and he says, "For those of you that were planning on flying Spirit to Haiti over Thanksgiving, I'm sure you will find this very upsetting. Everybody else, don't worry about it."
Well, I mean,
all of these things we talk about, the cell phone catching on fire and the airplane being shot at and all of those things, and the Spirit plane being shot at on its going to Haiti. The thing that what I hope that everybody takes away from this is that everyone is so well trained. They prepare, we prepare, Eric, the pilots prepare, the flight attendants prepare for virtually every single eventuality. I mean, it's one of the perfect examples of prepare for the, expect the best, but prepare for the worst. We're prepared for the worst possible things that could ever happen. And I only flew for 5.5 years, but I never had anything bad. I had some medical emergencies, but honestly, I never had anything really, really bad. So anyway.
Yeah. And I think that really is the takeaway. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of flights every single day just in the US alone. And we're picking like the oddest little ones out of these like many, many, many thousands, just to illustrate, just one, how safe the system is, two, all the safeguards and the procedures and the regulations that contribute to that, the training that goes into, which is really why it is not rational. And I know you know this if you watch this and you're afraid to fly, why it's not rational to have a fear of flying, which is why, and that's why we encourage you, one, to watch our show where we can talk about, I'm gonna say, the high level stuff and the what's going on in the aviation industry commercially, but then really take that next step and join one of our monthly group coaching webinars, or even the free Cleared for Takeoff 101 classes, either at the airport in Phoenix or that's usually happening the first Saturday of the month. And I know in December, I'm not sure what the date is, but it's the first Saturday. And then the next day, the following day, the Sunday, we're doing basically the same class online virtually. So you have absolutely no excuse. It's free. And you can join it literally with your, whatever attire you want to have on a Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And so what I'm saying is we have support here for you. If you don't know what to do, 15-minute coaching call with Capt Ron to kind of like point you in the right direction. But ultimately, it's really up to you, and we're here to help you on that journey. So thank you, Flight Attendant Diane. Thank you, Captain Eric. And next week, we're going to have Captain Ron back. But if you want to see him sooner, this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, we have our monthly group coaching webinar. And with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Eric.